One of the things that we pride ourselves on as an agency is that we're a resource for the community, not just in the services we provide for the residents, but the other assets that we have and what we can share. And it's twofold. One is our physical assets. So our conference room is often used for trainings, for meetings, for our other partner agencies. But the other asset we have is really some deeply committed, experienced staff. And so we lend our staff out to sort of the policy-making community, both at the city and county level. So we've got staff that chair the city's coalition to end hunger and homelessness. We have staff that participate in the county's roundtable on ending family homelessness. And just as we share our resources that we have with the community, we also recognize that for us to provide the most for our residents, we need to leverage other resources in the community. We can't provide everything and we can't do everything. So we partner with another agency that provides legal services and benefits advocacy. We partner with another nonprofit that brings tutors on site. So we have our own volunteer program, but the staff needed to screen volunteers that work with young kids is more labor intensive than we have the capacity. So we partner with School on Wheels, and this is our younger students' School on Wheels after school tutoring room. We work very closely with the LA Unified School District, and they have a program that a kid can stay matriculated in the school that they were attending, even if they become homeless and are temporarily living someplace else.
Okay.
So this is one of our playgrounds. We have a lot of kids here with very limited space. 65 families live here, which equates to about 250 people. 170 or so are kids. Most shelters separate families. I think I spoke about this when I was in your offices. Most shelters separate by gender, age 14 on. So a teenage boy wouldn't be able to stay with his mom, and a single dad wouldn't be with his little girls. Because of the physical design of this shelter, as well as our other family shelter in Boyle Heights, families can stay together no matter how they walk in the door, no matter what their configuration. As long as there's some adults and some dependents in the mix, and they define themselves as a family, we're good with it. This is a somewhat typical room. We provide beds and dressers and those things that families need. We encourage families to bring in any belongings that they have. With the kids, we really want them to have things that are comfortable and comforting for them, whether it's their own Spider-Man blanket or their TV set. In addition, we want to reduce the cost of storage because that's a real high expense for our residents. They did live someplace, and now they find themselves homeless. So what do they do with all their belongings while they're in that transition period of their life? This is a mom and her 14-year-old son who just moved into the shelter about a month ago. They moved here from Michigan, seeking a warmer climate for the mom's health conditions. She's a veteran of Afghanistan who had what's called a VASH voucher when they were in Michigan. VASH voucher is something that comes, Veteran Administrative Supportive Housing, is a rental subsidy that veterans can qualify for to go to a regular apartment and move in. And by giving this to the landlord, that resident pays 30% of their income, whatever their income is, and the Veteran Administration makes up the difference. So they might rent a market rate apartment. This woman had a VASH voucher when she was living in Michigan, but because of her health conditions and aggravated conditions of Michigan weather, and I know because I lived there, she chose to move out here. And she lost her VASH voucher in that move. So our staff has been working aggressively with her to regain a VASH voucher in Los Angeles, to have it assigned from her Michigan allotment to a California allotment. So this space, our teen room, used to be 2 residential units. And some people would say, well, how could you give up units? It's 2 families you could have served. But in our mind, the 65 families who are here are receiving better services because they've got more space to hang out, which is more natural for them. The reason why we carve out so many spaces, not just the room where they live, but to have so many spaces on site, is because we want to encourage the parents to do this when they move into their own apartment. child care center. And that's state-funded, operated by a partner agency. And we partner with the same agency to provide subsidized child care at 3 of our properties, 2 apartment buildings and this shelter. Again, as a resource to the community. So that child care center is not dedicated just to our residents. Cafeteria is a big part of our social programming as well. So what we try and do, obviously it's not big enough for all the families to eat at the same time, so people come in and out over like an hour and a half period. But we really try and encourage families to sit together. So as I said, this is our Trudy and Norman Lewis Valley shelter. This was our first shelter. When we go through, you'll be able to see this was originally a 40-unit motel that served families for a 30-day stay. And over the years, as the needs of the community, the homeless community changed, and our awareness of best practices changed, this space has evolved into a shelter for 250 single adults who could be here for up to 2 years. What makes LA Family Housing so unique, just like with the family shelters where we could take any type family, 2 dads, a single mom with teenage kids, a single dad with 5 little girls, we also can take any adult. And that's very, very unique. We could take people who are actively using, encourage their sobriety, but not deny them shelter because they are not sober. We could take people with mental health issues, we could take people living with HIV/AIDS, we could take seniors, we could take vets, and we do.
The rooms are configured not exactly the same. Some have 2-room occupancy that can basically range, depending on the size of the room, from 2 to maybe 5 people. In this case, these are 2-bedroom rooms that hold 2 people. So the majority of them will be getting their VASH voucher and be going into permanent housing within 3 to 4 months. So it's a good thing. So our job as case managers to basically help them in their transition and going from homelessness into the shelter into permanent housing.
Oh, I volunteered. Do I still